Hello anybody and welcome. I'm Christian from ISI and this is the fourth Devlog video on my game Lightbots. So, over the weekend I've been working on the new gravity system for my game. As you may have known from one of the previous videos, I talked about having different puzzle elements for certain levels, so I was just working on the gravity system. So now the gravity can be changed which direction it's pointing in. So I'll just show that off now in just a second. I ended up spending just about the whole weekend working on this due to the fact that the original character controller I had for my units and stuff didn't work with changed gravity because it relied on the X and Y coordinates. So as soon as the gravity rotated, that didn't work at all. But as you can see now, I can still run around. I actually think the character controller is better now. So as you can see, he's a little bit more snappy and faster moving. I think it's actually better. Yeah. So now I can open up the main camera, which is what I've put it on. So I've got the gravity controller script here, and I can see what direction I want the gravity to be in. So if I rotate like that, the cameras rotate, and so does the unit. Now you can run around in this new axis. So now I can completely flip it around. Oopsie. So I originally had it at 90 degrees of rotation speed, but it works much better with 360. Because as you saw there, when I flip the gravity completely, the character ends up flying all over the place, and it you know, if you're working on a puzzle and stuff, and then you flip the gravity and your character's got flown across the map, that'd be pretty annoying. So yeah, what I've got it set to is 360, so it's pretty much instantaneous when you flip the gravity, so I just go whoop, and everything's just around the back on the other side. The character is almost exactly the same as the box, which is kind of strange. You would think they'd go at the same speed, because the only difference is their mass. Yeah, which is really weird. They should be falling at the same speed. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep the mass that high. Just turn that back to what it was. I just did this because, as you can see, if I turn the mass down really low, and then I take control of this unit, if I bump the box, it goes flying across the map. And so I just set it to like a higher value so that when you push the box, it didn't just like flying across the map. Yeah, it moves a little bit, but I think I might change it back. But yeah, that doesn't make sense why it's going at a different speed, because everything falls at the same speed unless there's different shapes or something, which is strange. I guess that's just 2D physics in Unity. Anyway, so that's all I've done for today. I'll probably go back to designing levels again. It's just that levels aren't so interesting, because I don't want to show off all the levels, because that'd be pretty stink if I'd made a whole bunch of levels and then showed you all the levels and how to solve them and stuff. It'd be pretty boring to play. So I don't want to just work on levels, because then it's like, oh yeah, I did levels, but I'm not going to show you any of them, which would be kind of annoying. But anyway, so that's what I've done for today, and I'll see you. Okay, it's Wednesday right now. I spent yesterday working a little bit more on the gravity system and on the fluid system. So I originally started off by using Unity's buoyancy effector 2D, and that took me a while. I was working with that, trying to make it work the way I wanted to, and have the right physics and everything. But after I'd finished it and I thought it was all done, I started getting it so it would rotate with the gravity, so that when you change gravity, the water would flow to different parts of the map. But what happened is the buoyancy effector can't be rotated. So if you rotate the buoyancy effector, the water level stays flat, aligned to the y-axis. And so, yeah, I looked around to see if I could find a way to do it, and I couldn't. So I ended up having to make my own fluid system. It's not very advanced, but yeah, I've just got these objects that can splash around in the water. And then if I go to the main camera and go to the gravity controller and change the direction, the water will all flow to the different part of the map. So it's nothing intelligent. It's not like an actual volumetric fluid simulation or anything like that. It's just a giant rectangle, and it's pivoted. It's parented to this water object, which is currently sits at the 0 point of the world. So that will sit wherever I want the water to pivot through in the level. And then I have a child object, which is just a graphic. And then on my water controller, I can set what water height I want it to have. So as I decrease the water height, the water level goes down and up. But it still rotates around its origin point. And so the idea behind that is depending on the levels, you might want the water to rotate for a different point. And then I'm just lerping it just to the new gravity direction. That makes it kind of look like the water's actually flowing in the level. So as you can see, the water level is much lower now. But it sort of gives the illusion that the water is actually flowing and actually has some physical properties in the world, but it is just a box that just rotates. But yeah, while they're under the water, they just get the force applied to them, and that is squared based on the depth below the surface. So the deeper they go, the much higher the force is, so when they're just on the surface of that. Then I used a float offset. I just did that because often I would get the force to a point where I really liked it, but they would still be below the water level, so now I can just offset it so that they float to the surface. The linear damping, any object that's inside the water, I just multiply its velocity by a negative velocity. So I add a negative velocity multiplied by the linear damping. And so that means while they're underwater, they get slowed down. And I also added a linear clamping to prevent them from going too quickly. Because what would happen, I was often get oscillations. If I fell really, really quickly into the water, I would just oscillate, the character would, or the object would oscillate really quickly up and down through the water. So I just did that so they would never be going too quickly. And then I've got angular damping, which just multiplies the torque and just slows them down. So it's to prevent things from wildly spinning while in the water. So as you can see, the cube can still rotate, but it doesn't want to rotate very much, and it'll stop pretty quickly. Yeah, so that's about all I did. I seem to be procrastinating quite a lot about making levels by programming things that don't need to be programmed yet, which is something I've got to try and not do. So yeah, instead of making new levels, I start programming new level things, which don't need to be done. But yeah, I'm going to try and see if I can do levels before the end of the week, hopefully. At least get a couple. I just need to make a couple of levels a week at least, and it'll get done eventually, but I'll just see how I can do. Anyway, that's all for today. Okay, it's Thursday. I've been working on levels, mostly. So I've added just a few more, like 4 I think it is, yeah. They're mostly simple because I've been sort of doing tutorial-ish missions for the gravity controller now. But after I'd been working with it a while, I came up with a cool idea, I thought, for a puzzle. But then when I tried to make it, I realized that my gravity system, I don't know how this sort of like slipped my mind, but it was global, not local. So I had no way of controlling gravity in individual areas, which meant that the puzzle I wanted to create couldn't actually be done without like messing up the entire game. It would have been really weird as things were moving around for gravity to be changing the entire environment. So I've modified it and made new gravity systems, where gravity can now be controlled in volumes. So I have this unit, he can run around. This area is just normal gravity. Actually, it might be a little bit low. But yeah, so he can run around. And then down here I've got a gravity, this gravity zone 0, so no gravity, he's just floating out because he was jumping. And this one has gravity going sideways, and then I fall back down. So, and then there's actually a negative gravity here, so this is going up, so if I jump and I'm going down, I'll hit that and then I'll be pushed upwards. And then I'll go into here, be sucked across. I also had to change the unit controller a bit again to get it to work with gravities moving sideways and stuff, which means I've now made it you have less control when you're in the air, so if I run around like this, I can go, and then it's really hard for me to change direction while I'm in the air, which I guess is kind of more realistic. And then pretty much to solve this puzzle, you got to push the cubes over to the other side. But what it does is it seals the door and opens the other one. So I've actually like failed this puzzle. Oopsie. So what's happening is in this one, I'm trying to teach that using gravity, you can actually have things that take time. So there's actually a gravity volume here that pushes them away from the wall to prevent you from having to make it easier to, what do you call it, to reset this when it makes mistakes. So as you can see, the cube gets pushed away from the wall. So it's easier for me to push them away, and I can push them back. So what happens is you've just got to get back to this really airlock really quickly. So if I just shove these really hard and then run back, and then I go back in, and the door seals behind me, and then I finish the mission. And this just takes me back to the first mission because I haven't gotten to that mission legitimately. So yeah, that's what I've been working on, a gravity zone. Unfortunately, using these gravity zones have actually messed up some of the earlier levels I did with the gravity, with global gravity. So those missions aren't actually working now, so I'm just going to have to go through and change a few scripts and modify how a few things work. And then it should be working back the way it was before. So yeah, that's what I've been working today, working on a few missions. I'll try and keep working on these missions, and then I will... Yeah, I'm hoping to get maybe 5-ish missions out of just purely gravity-based mechanics, and then I'll move on to the water-based mechanics and stuff, hopefully. So, that's all for today. Okay, it's Friday. I've been working mostly on fixing some of the levels I broke with the addition of the new gravity zone. That's about it. So, like I said earlier, or in the previous video I think maybe, but, you know, it's not all that interesting about levels, because I don't always want to show off every level, or else it gets kind of boring. But yeah, so I mainly just fixed up some of the levels which when I added the gravity zone didn't work with the old system, so I have to put a bit of work into that. I've also been thinking about how I can fix the water system, because again, I've just realized that the water system also relies on a global gravity-based system. So I'm not sure whether I'll make it like if there's water in the level, you can't have gravity zones, and that might have to be like a limitation I put on myself, because I don't really see how I can feasibly well, easily, I guess. It'd be way too much work to try and get a system that worked out different zones and stuff to make the water flow mildly realistically. It would just be completely over the top, and I wouldn't be able to do it with the current system I've got at all. So that's a bit of a pain. But yeah, I guess that's a limitation I'm just gonna have to live with for now. But yeah, so I've just mostly been working on the old system with the global gravity. I might just make it in those missions just not use gravity zones and then just use the old system, and then levels where I want, global gravity and like water and stuff, I can do those all in the same one. But yeah, that's about all I've done, so not a lot of interesting things. So this will be the last video for now, so goodbye everybody, and see you next time.